Okay, so today's daf is daf Yud Aleph, and we're going to start at the Mishnah on the bottom of Yud Amud Beis. Beishamai Omrim. Beishamai says, Be'erev kol adam yate v'yikra. In the evening Shema b'shach b'cha v'kumecha, as we discussed, b'shach b'cha, he takes it to mean literally. Every person has to lie down and say Shema. Ubaboker, and in the morning, Yamod, he should stand up. Shenemar, like the verse says, B'shach b'cha v'kumecha. When one lies down and when one gets up, that's when how you're supposed to say Shema. Beis Hillel says no. Kol adam kar kedarkai. Everybody could say it as they are, whether they're sitting or standing. Shenemar, like it says, as you're going on your way. On your way, meaning wherever position you're in. So the Mishnah continues. Imkein lama nemar ubeshach b'cha v'kumecha. It says Beis Hillel. So why does it in fact say ubeshach b'cha v'kumecha? That's not supposed to be literal, Beis Hillel. That's supposed to be b'shah shebnei adam shochvim ubeshah shebnei adam omdim. That's at the time that people are starting to lie down. People are lying down, or at the time that people are getting up in the morning. Samar of Tarfon says, Ani hayisi ba baderech. I was going on the way, and I stopped and I lied down. Vehetesi likros kedav Beishamai. It was time for the evening Shema, and I lied down to do it like the words of Beishamai. V'sakanti ba'asmi fnei alistim, and I almost got mugged. And I put myself in a sakana in front of them bandits. And Amrulai, the rabbis told him, Kedai yisa lachov ba'atzmacha. You're actually responsible for yourself. You deserve to die. Shavarta al Beis Hillel, because you went against the words of Beis Hillel. As we know, the halacha is like Beis Hillel. Okay? So the Gemara says, top of Yud Aleph, Amud Aleph. Bishlam Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel makes sense. Kamifarshi ta'amayu v'taimid Beishamai. In the Mishnah, Beis Hillel says his reason, because the pasuk says v'lachtu chavaderech, and he explains the reason of Beishamai. He explains the pasuk v'shach b'cha v'kumecha to mean the time when people are lying down, and the time when people are getting up. Not that it's literal. Ele Beishamai my time ele amri ki Beis Hillel. Our Mishnah only says v'shach b'cha v'kumecha when one lying down and one stands up to mean literal. But what does Beishamai do with the verse of Beis Hillel of V'lachtacha b'derech? Amri lecha Beishamai. Beishamai will tell you, Imkein nemakra baboker uba'erev. No, if it's true that B'shach b'cha v'kumecha is indeed referring to the night and the morning, or the morning and the night, then Imkei Nemakar, the pasuk should just say Baboker Berev. The mitzvah of saying Shema is in the morning and at night. My b'shach b'cha uv'kumecha. What does it mean when one's lying down and when one's getting up? Right? It's a little vague. So it means b'shas shchiva mamish, or b'shas kima mamish. Says Beishamai, it has to in fact mean literal when one lies down and when one gets up. Ubeishamai says the Gemara, "Hai b'lachtacha b'derech ma'avaluhu." What's he going to do with the verse of b'lachtacha b'derech? The Beis Hillel learned that when you're going on the way, just like as when you're going on the way, you can lie down, you can stand up, however you want to be. So too when you say Shema. Says the Gemara says, "Ahumi ba'ilahu." He needs l'chadetanya for another halacha that we learned in a Breita. What is that halacha? It says b'shiftecha b'veisecha, when you're sitting in your house, and that is pra'la osek b'mitzvah, to exclude someone who's osek b'mitzvah. You know the concept of osek b'mitzvah, pater min mitzvah. It's a complex concept, but the topic is wrote in Sukkah and in other places. The concept of one who is engrossed in one mitzvah is actually permitted to contain himself and to concentrate on that mitzvah. Doesn't have to do another mitzvah. So it says b'shiftecha b'veisecha when you're in your house, meaning that when you have responsibility of saying Shema when you're sitting around the house and you're just watching TV, you're just hanging out. But if you're doing a mitzvah, then you don't have to. And when you're going on the way, that is to exclude prat lechasen, to exclude a chasen. Okay, we'll see in a minute that from Mikan Amru, from here we learn hakoinis is a besula pater. A person who is marrying a virgin is pater from Kriya Shema that night. Ves almana chayiv, and one who's marrying a widow, a person who is a woman who is not a virgin, is responsible for Kriya Shema. So my mashma, how do you see it from the pasuk of Ulachtacha derech? Amar papa ki derech. Just like the way. Ma derech rishus, the way. The way is referring to rishus. Rishus means however you want to go. When you're walking, you stop, you start, you take a nap, you stop on the side of the road. Af kol rishus. Also, all rishus you're going to have to stop to say Kriya Shema. Milei askinin taka azal dvar mitzvah. Says the Gemara, wait a minute. Is it not talking about, maybe it's also coming to include a person who's going to do a mitzvah. Fa'afilo hachi, amar achmana likri. The word b'lachtacha baderech just means the way. Now, you could do mitzvahs on the way also. So how do you know that the B'lachtacha b'derech is coming to tell me that I'm pra'la yosef mitzvah right? Is prat to exclude osik b'mitzvah, v'lachtachav aderech is prat lachasen, right? What do you mean? V'lachtachav aderech could also mean the way that you're responsible for saying Krishma. You could be doing a mitzvah. The Torah said, likri, that you should read Krishma. So the Gemara says no, because im kain, if that was so, that even if you were doing a mitzvah, you should say Krishma. You have responsibility to say Krishma. Lichtev rachmana b'sheves ubeleches. When you're sitting and going, you have a responsibility to say Krishma. My b'shiftecha ubelechtecha, a strange language of you're sitting and then you're walking. That's what it means to say. It's supposed to be that way. B'sheves didach, and you're sitting, ubeleches didach hud mechayeves, and you're going. That's when you're responsible to say Shema. Had mitzvah piteres. But if you're doing a mitzvah, if you're sitting in a mitzvah, or if you're going in a mitzvah, which is not you're sitting and you're going, that's not your casual leisure time, then you're putter. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? We said if a person is marrying a non-virgin, a woman who is a widow, then he's still chayiv to say Krishma that night. It's also a mitzvah to marry her. So the Gemara says, no, hai tarid v'hai loy tarid. One who's marrying a virgin is tarid, meaning his mind, he can't concentrate because he's thinking about the act that he's going to perform that night, and he's afraid he's going to hurt her. She's a virgin, he's going to hurt her or something like that. So therefore he's tarid and he can't concentrate on Shema. Continues the Gemara, Imishim Tirda, you introduce this new concept called Tirda, where you're sort of preoccupied. If preoccupation is a reason to not say Krishma, Afilu Tivas Vinasabayam Nami. If one takes all of his possessions and he has them on a ship, right, and he has everything on the ship, and the ship is sinking, and gets telegraph that the Titanic is going down, he should also be putter from Krishma. Okay, because he can't concentrate. V'chitema, says the Gemara Hachanami, that maybe that's so. Alama Amar Rabbi Abba Amar Bar Zavda Amar Rav. We have a quote from the Rav Abba, the son of Zavda, in the name of Rav. Avol Chay B'chol Mitzvahs Amors B'Torah. A person who is an avol, a person who is in mourning, is responsible for all the mitzvahs in the Torah. Chutz Tefillin that first day, Shaharei Nemer Behen Pe'er, because it calls them a Pe'er. Okay, so we'll see what this means in a moment. But an avol, a person who's in mourning, who just lost a loved one, there's no one with greater tirda than him. No one's more preoccupied and caught up in his sorrow and his ability to concentrate than an avol. And we know that an avol is chayiv in Krishma. So it can't be that tirda is the reason. Okay, because if that was so, then an avol is chayiv in mitzvahs. Okay, so the Gemara is going to continue on with that in a second. We interject the reason why an avol is chayiv in all the mitzvahs amors b'Torah, besides for tefillin, because sharei nemer behem pe'er, because tefillin are called a pe'er, a beauty. Okay, Shenemar, the pasuk says, "Pe'erecha chavoshalecha." Now, this is talking about, this pasuk is a pasuk in Yecheskel. This is shortly before the destruction of Bayis Rishon, the first temple. Hashem came and gave a nevuah to Yecheskel that your wife is going to shortly die, and she in fact died the next night. But in the pasuk, he tells him that I don't want you to act like an avol. I don't want you to have the habits of a mourner, and therefore you should not act like a mourner. You should do certain things, and one of the things he tells them is you should wear shoes. You should allow yourself to don certain cloths, different things he told them. And one of the things that you should wear your tefillin. So for the fact that he told him he should wear his tefillin must mean that an avol doesn't wear tefillin on the first day because it's called the pe'er. Okay, and the reason why Hashem told him to not act like an avol is that part of the nevuah is going to be a reference to the destruction of the temple when it was going to be so bad that everybody's going to be in mourning. Everyone's going to lose someone. Everyone's going to be in mourning, and there will be no one to comfort you because everyone will be in mourning. If there's no comforters, then there are no mourners. So the prophecy is that you should not mourn to show everybody what it's going to be like with the destruction of the temple. Okay, but in any event, so what's the answer? The answer is hasam. When it comes to a person marrying a virgin, a basula, tarid tirda de mitzvah, he's preoccupied, but he's preoccupied with the mitzvah because he's thinking about the first time he's going to have relations, and it's a mitzvah. But hach over here, tarid tirda de rishus, one who's thinking about death of a loved one, and one who's thinking about his possessions are getting lost at sea. That's tirda de rishus, meaning not that the Torah is not minimizing his feelings. It is a horrible thing, and he's preoccupied. But that's your own preoccupation. That's not tirda de mitzvah. Okay, and what's interesting here, the commentaries explain that it's not so simple because the concept of oisik b'mitzvah, pater min mitzvah, one who's engrossed in a mitzvah is pater from doing another mitzvah. You have to understand that because we know if we're wearing tzitzis, one's wearing tzitzis all day. That doesn't mean that he doesn't have to daven, right? It doesn't mean that he doesn't have to bench or say, say birchat hamazon after eating. He's wearing tzitzis. So we know that the concept of osir b'mitzvah, pater b'mitzvah is a little more complicated than that. Some of the commentaries, just to quote very briefly, explain that the osir b'mitzvah is only if I'm doing a mitzvah, and by doing this second mitzvah, it's actually going to interrupt on some level my first mitzvah. So doing a mitzvah when wearing tzitzis is not an interruption that wouldn't constitute osir b'mitzvah. And even over here, we see that osir b'mitzvah is extended to thoughts of a mitzvah, because a chassan who's thinking about doing consummating the marriage with relations that night, he's not even doing the action, and still he's pater from Kriya Shema. So we see that it's a pretty broad concept that has intricate dinim. Okay, so the Gemara continues. Ubei Shammai. What about Bei Shammai? Hahu mi baile prat l'shluchei mitzvah. No. Now Bei Shammai, we had said that the Gemara had said before. Excuse me for a second. Mishami says pralish luchay mitzvah, that the concept of lachas didach, which Beis Hillel had learned from there, that belachas didachud mechayeves, and that's talking about prat l'shluchei mitzvah, is coming to exclude one who is a shliach for a mitzvah. Even one who's on his way is permitted, is exempt from the mitzvah. Ta'afil b'derech nami kari, he should read. Okay, that one that he doesn't hold to that din, and one who's a shliach mitzvah, who's going to do another mitzvah, he still has to say Kriya Shema. Okay. Okay. So now the Gemara continues. Tana Rabbanan, Beis Hillel says, Oimdim v'koirin. Okay, one could stand and say Shema. Yoshvin v'korin, he could sit and say Shema. Matin v'korin, he can lean on his side and say Shema. Holchem baderech v'korin, he could walk and say Shema. Oisim v'malachtim v'korin, he could do his malacha and say Shema. Okay, and that's the halacha. Like Beis Hillel, one doesn't have to specifically lie down or stand up. Umayis Rabbi Shmuel v'Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. There was a story with Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Shahid mesubim v'makam echad. They were lying. They were leaning down. Okay, Rabbi Shmuel muta. Rabbi Shmuel was leaned over, like lying down on a pillow or some sort of couch. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah zakuf. He was bent up. He was standing up. Kevan shehigias man Kriya Shema, which Kriya Shema came, and Rabbi Shmuel was lying over there. He to Rabbi Elazar lied down to say Kriya Shema, right, as he saw Rabbi Shmuel was lying down. V'zakav Rabbi Shmuel, right before he said Kriya Shema at night, he stood himself up. So Amar Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Elazar tells Rabbi Shmuel, Yishmuel achi, Yishmuel my brother, em shalacha mashal l'ma davar daima. I'm going to bring you a parable like to what this is compared to. It's like it's comparable to one who tells his friend, your beard is long, your beard is beautiful. Amar lahem, you like it? I'm going to shave it off. So it's like you're sort of spiting me. Afkach, also over here, Afkach ata kolzman shani zakov ata moita. The whole time that you were shani zakov, that I was standing up, you were lying down. Achshav, now when Kriya Shema came, kishani hetesi, and I wanted to lie down to do the Shema like you at night, like Beis Shammai, ata zikafta, you stood up. So you're like saying, it's sort of like a spit in the face. Amarle, he told him, Ani asisa k'divrei Beis Hillel. I did like Beis Hillel, v'ata asisa k'divrei Shammai. You did like Beis Shammai. V'loin, and not only that, he told him, El Lashema yiru talmidim. Perhaps students will see. V'yikvu halacha l'doros, and they'll be kovea. They'll institute the halacha to be like Beis Shammai forever. We know that's not the halacha. So they want to ask, my v'loid, what does it mean? And he said, and also that people the students will see and they'll think the halacha is like Beis Shammai. Because this is what he meant to tell him. V'chitim, if you're going to tell me that, listen, Beis Hillel nami islahu matin. Beis Hillel allows you to lie down and say Shema. He also allows you to stand up or to walk, right? So what's the problem? You're lying down. I lie down too. There's no problem with that. Hanimili, that is damatava asu miikara. That's if you're lying down and you want to say Shema, you can lie down and you continue to lie down and say Shema at night. Havalhach over here came in hashta avisa zakov. Until now you were standing up. The hashta muta, and now you're specifically going to lie down. What's going to happen? A talmid, a student's going to be looking through the window, and Amri Shmami no kabi shames. We're going to say that, oh wow, look, they lie down to say Shema. Must be like Bishamai. So therefore, Shema Yeru Talmidim v'yikvu halacha ledaris. So therefore, I specifically stood up, in fact, just despite you, just despite the halacha, to show that the halacha is not like Beis Shammai, it's in fact like Beis Hillel. Okay? Tani Reb Yecheskel, Asa K'divrei Beis Shammai Asa. Brisa brings Rabbi Cheskel that says a person who dislikes Beis Shammai, he does it. K'divrei Hillel Asa. Meaning, if you're lying, you're sitting up, it's fine. Either way. Okay? Rav Yosef Amar, Yosef says Asa K'divrei Shammai loy asa v'loy klum. If you were specifically standing up and you lied down to do like Beis Shammai at night, or if you were lying down in the morning and you specifically stood up, you didn't do anything. You weren't Mekayim the mitzvah. Ditznan, as we learned in the Mishnah, we'll bring a proof that Beis Shammai held that if you did like Beis Hillel, you're not Yotzei a mitzvah. So too, if you do like Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel's going to hold that you're not Yotzei the mitzvah. Ditznan, the first wide line. One who has his head and most of his veruvai, most of his body in the sukkah, okay, which is the halacha, you have to be like that. But he has his table inside the house. It's not under the schach, okay? The mitzvah of being in the sukkahs, you have to be under the schach. Beis Shammai poslim, Beis Shammai says it is puzzle. Okay, it's in fact not permitted to sit like this because he was afraid that you would put your head over the table and your head and most of your body would not be in the sukkah. Well, Beis Hillel says be careful, but it's okay as long as your head and most of your body is still in the sukkah. And Amru lahem Beis Hillel Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel told Beis Shammai. Maya said there was a story. Shaholchu ziknei Beis Shammai, v'ziknei Beis Hillel. The elders of Shammai and the elders of Hillel went lavakes Rabbi Yochanan and Achoranis to visit Rabbi Yochanan and Achoranis on Sukkos. And Matzau, they found him. Shahaya Roishe Veruba B'Sukkah. His head and the majority of his body was in the sukkah. V'Shulchana B'Seichabayis, but he kept his table inside the house. V'Loi Amru Loi Klum. And Beis Hillel says to Beis Shammai, and they didn't tell him anything. So it must be that they agree that the halacha is that you don't have to have, it's permitted to have your table inside the house as long as your head and most of your body is in the sukkah. And Amru Lehem, the Talmid of Beis Shammai, told Beis Hillel, no, Misham Raya, that's a proof. Afheim Amru, you got the story wrong. Really, they did tell him. Im Kena Yisinog, if that's what you do, look, Yabda Mitzvah Sukkah Me'yemecha. You never Mekayim the mitzvah sukkah retroactively, even if your head and most of your body remained in the sukkah. Since you did like Beis Hillel, you're not Mekayim the sukkah, the mitzvah. So we see here that Beis Hillel is going to say to Beis Shammai, okay, the halacha is like us. The halacha is that one is not allowed to specifically lie down for the night Shema, or one is specifically not allowed to stand up for the morning Shema. And if you do so, Beis Hillel is going to say that you're not Mekayim the mitzvah of Shema. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar Asa K'divrei Shammai. One who does like Beis Shammai is actually Chayav Misa. Okay, gets the death penalty. Okay, he deserves to die. The Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, he doesn't get the death penalty from court, but he deserves to die. The Tanan, like we learned in the Mishnah, Amar of Tarfon said, I was going on the way, tasted liquors, K'divrei Shammai, and I lied down specifically to be machmer. I thought, like Beis Shammai, v'tesi las misakanti bas mipnei alistim, and I put myself into sakana. Okay, I endangered myself because the bandits had come and I had to run away. And I'm like, you deserve to have died because you went against the words of Beis Hillel. So we see that he takes the most stringent approach. Not only you're not Mekayim the mitzvah, but you're in fact you're responsible for your own mishaps that occur because of doing that. Okay. Now the Mishnah continues. In the morning, when we say Kriya Shema, we have two brachas before, right? We have two brachas that are said before, Yotzar and the bracha of Araba, and Achas Lachrea, and the one after of Gal Yisrael. Uba'erev, in the evening, Shema Mevarach Shtayim Lefanel, we have two before, V'Shtayim Lachrea, and two after. We have the Gal Yisrael, and we also have Hashkivenu. Achas Arucha, Achas Ktsar, the brachas afterwards, there's different interpretations. The commentaries say, what does it mean, long and short? Either one has a beginning of Baruch Atah Hashem, and then a Baruch Atah Hashem at the end, Hashkivenu, Harucha v'Achas Ksara. But the simple understanding over here is talking about, Rashi explains, seems to say that the long one is Emes v'Yamuna, right, which ends with Gal Yisrael, and the short one is Hashkivenu, where we ask Hashem to guard us while we sleep. Okay, and then the Mishnah continues. Malkum she'amru laharach eina rishaya lekatzer. In general, when the Chazal instituted a bracha and they said it should be long, one is not allowed to shorten it. And lekatzer, if they said to make it long, eina rishaya laharach, to make it short, you can't make it long. And lach time, if it ends with a Baruch Atah Hashem, like Gal Yisrael, Ein Rishai Shaloi Lachtem, you can't end it without Hashem's Chasima, without the Chasima. And Shaloi Lachtem, if they instituted it without an ending, Ein Rishai Lachtem, you can't add a Baruch Atah Hashem. Okay, so now the Gemara talks about this. My mevarach. What was the bracha? We're talking about the two that were said after in the morning. The two that are said before the Shema in the morning. What were they? Amar Rav Yaakov bar Roshaya. Rav Yaakov, the son of Roshaya, said the top of Yud Aleph on the base. The first bracha was Yotzer Or Avodah Choshech, and the second we're going to see is Avos Olam Av Rabbah. Okay, so the Gemara interjects and says, why do we say Yotzer Or Avodah Choshech, who creates the light and who forms the light and creates darkness? Lema Yotzer Or Avodah Noiga. The pasuk says Avodah Choshech, right? But we should use a nicer language. Lashon of Noga is light. Okay, so it's a little bit of a negative thing to say Avodah Choshech. Okay, so why does it say Avodah Noga? The Gemara says Kidich Ka'amrinan, because it says it in the verse of Avodah Choshech, and therefore they continued with the way it's written in the pasuk. Says the Gemara Elamiata Oisa Shalom Uvayrei Ra Mika Amrinan. We don't say Oisa Shalom Uvayrei Ra, right? Oisa Shalom Uvayrei Kol, we say. Kidich Ela Ksiv Ra V'Karinan Hakol. We say Oisa Shalom Uvayrei Hakol, right? So Lishna Ma'aliyah, we change it to a nicer sounding thing. Instead of saying he created Uvayrei Ra and he created evil, we said he created everything. Elaksiv Ra, it's written Ra v'Karinan Hakol. Lishna Ma'aliyah, which is a preferred language. Hachanami Lema Noiga. So let us say Noiga. Lishna Ma'aliyah, which is a nicer language than Avodah Choshech, who created darkness. Elamarava, the reason why we say Avodah Choshech is specific Kedei Lahaskir Minas Yom Balayla, to mention the attributes of day at night, Minas Laila B'Yom, and the attributes of night during the day. So the Gemara says Bishlam Minas Laila B'Yom. We mention night, the attributes of night during the day. Kedamri, like we just said, Yotzer Or Avodah Choshech, which we say in the morning, shall create a night, even though we're saying in the day. Elamidas Yom Balayla Heichem Mishkach Azla. Where are you going to find a mention of the attributes of the night during the day? Elamidas Yom Balay. I'm sorry, the attributes of the day during the night. Where are you going to find? Amar Abaya Goylel Ar Mipnei Choshech v'Choshech Mipnei Ar. We say Hashem rolls the light into the darkness, and the darkness into the light. V'idach mahi. What's the other bracha? The second bracha that we say before Shema. Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel Ahav Rabbah. Okay. V'chein urilei Rav Elazar l'Rapadas Berei Ahav Rabbah. Okay. Tanya Namihachi Ein Oimrim Avas Olam. You don't say Avas Olam El Ahav Rabbah. For Rabbanan Amri, the Rabbanan say we say Avas Olam. V'chein Oimrim, the pasuk says V'Avas Olam Avticha Al Kei Mishkaticha Chesed. Okay. I have loved you in eternal love. Okay. And now this bracha Ahav Rabbah, which we say Avas Olam, different according to Machlokas over here, talks about the love that Hashem has for Klal Yisrael. And it's very befitting because the way it works is at the end we say Baruch Atah Hashem Ohev Amma Yisrael, that you love your people, the Jewish people. He loves his people, the Jewish people, and then we go right into Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, which is our proclaiming the Chativa Achas for Hashem, which comes off of Hashem's love for us. Okay, so then the Gemara continues. Amar Rav Yehuda, the first word of the line is Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Hishkim Lishnai. So if a person wakes up early in the morning to learn, Actually, Krishma, if he has not yet read Krishma, Tzarech Levarach, he has to say the Brachos Torah, as we're going to see in a minute. Mishakar Krishma, if he already said Shema, Ein Tzarech Levarach, he doesn't have to say Brachos Krishma. Shekvar Nifter Ba'av Rabbah, because in Av Rabbah we talk about the love and the importance of studying Torah, like we say in the Av Rabbah. Okay, it has a little bit of a Brachos Torah. We say B'Seim B'Libenu Lilmad Alamed Lishmar Velasos. Put it in our heart to learn, to teach, to guard, and to do. V'Lakayim is called every Talmud Torah Secha B'Yava. So it has a little bit of the mention of the blessing of asking Hashem to teach us His Torah. Okay, so therefore you don't have to bless before learning if you already said Shema and the brachas of Shema. Amar Rav Huna says Lemikra Tzarech Levarach. If one is learning psukim from the Torah, he has to say brachas Torah. Ulemedrash, but for Medrash, which is the commentaries on the psukim, Ein Tzarech Levarach. He does not have to bless. Rabbi Lazar Amar, Lemikra Ulemedrash Tzarech Levarach. For both Mikra, the psukim, and the commentaries on the psukim, you have to bless. But Mishnah, for the Mishnah, the sayings of the Tanaim that are written in the Mishnah, Ein Tzarech Levarach. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Af LeMishnah Tami Tzarech Levarach. Also, for Mishnah, you have to say the brachas of Torah before. Aval the Talmud Ein Tzarech Levarach. Okay? V'Rava Amar Af L'Talmud Tzarech Levarach. Amar Rav Chiya bar Rashi. Rav Chiya bar Rashi says Zimnus again many times. Habi Kamina Kamed Rav. We were before Rav. L'Snui Pirkon B'Sifra Debei Rav to learn from him the Sifra Debei Rav. Okay, this kinds of measures. Some say and some say that there was their commentaries on it, so it was like Gemara. And have him mocked him. He would get up early. V'Kamas Yadi. He would wash his hands. Uberach, and he would bless. Umasin Pirkon. So he would say Brachos Torah before. Okay, my Mavarech. What is Birchas HaTorah? What is the blessing before the reading of the Torah? Whether it was for Mishnah, whether it was for Mikra, or just Mikra, or Mikra and Medrash, or Mikra Medrash and Mishnah, or Mikra Medrash Mishnah and Gemara or Talmud. Right? What is the blessing? On Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, we say Asher Kidishanu b'mitzvaysav, that he made us holy with his mitzvahs. Vitzivanu, and he commanded us la'asok b'divrei Torah, to engross ourselves in the words of Torah. For Rav Yochanan, Messiah Bahachi, Rav Yochanan used to complete it like this: Harev na Hashem Elokeinu, make sweet for us, please, Hashem our God, as divrei Torah, the words of your Torah, b'finu in our mouths, b'fifiyes amcha beis Yisrael, in the mouths of the Jewish your people, the Jewish people. V'niyeh anachnu, and we should be v'tzetzaenu, and our offspring v'tzetzei amcha beis Yisrael, and the offspring of your people, the Jewish people. Kulanu yodei shemecha. We should know your name. And the ones who are gross in your Torah. Baruch atah Hashem. Blessed are you, Hashem. Hamalami Torah la'am Yisrael, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. Right? Malachish Sapornav is brought down. Hashem himself teaches one Torah when he's learning with him, like we said earlier. Hashem comes and blesses us. For Rav Hamnuna Amar, Rav Hamnuna said, Asher bochar banu mikol ha'amim. The blessing is that you chose us from all the nations, and he gave us his Torah. Baruch atah Hashem, Neisen HaTorah. Blessed you, Hashem, the giver of the Torah. And Amar Rav Hamnuna, Zuhi Mu'ula Shebebrachas. This is the greatest of the blachas. And the Gemara interjects and says, since we have all these beautiful blachas, the halacha is, and so is brought the halacha, Hilkach Limrinu L'Kulo, we in fact say all of the blessings. Okay, for Brachos Torah. Tanan Hasa, we learned over there. Okay, and this is we're going to see Mishnah in Tamid, and we'll explain it a little bit further tomorrow as well. Amr lehem Hamnuna, the pointed one. This is in the Beis Hamikdash. He would tell them, Baruchu bracha achas, say one bracha. We'll see what this means. Veheim baruchu, and they would bless. V'karu asaras hadibros, they would read the asaras hadibros, the 10 Commandments. Shema and the Shema, v'hayim shemaya and the v'hayim shemaya paragraph. V'hayomer gimel brachas, and then they would bless the people 3 brachas, right? Or there's different the commentaries have different ways of reading these words. Emes v'yatzev v'avoda brachos kahanim. Okay, these are the different blessings they would say. We'll talk about this tomorrow, but on Shabbos they added another bracha. It was a blessing for the mishmar that was leaving. Meaning, in those days they used to have the 24 mishmaras, the 24 different groups that the Jewish people, the Kohanim, were divided into, and each one would have their day or their week really to work in the temple, work in the Beis Hamikdash. So they would leave for the next day. They would have a blessing as they left. Okay, my bracha achas. So we said when we had brought down this the beginning. What is this bracha that they said before? And they went to this place, and Bobina, they asked from them, my bracha achas. What was the bracha? Lo yahav b'yadayu. They didn't know the answer. Also, sha'alu l'Rav Masna. They asked for Masna. Lo yahav b'yadei. He didn't know the answer. Also, they went sha'alu l'Rav Yehuda. They asked for Yehuda. And Amar lahu, he told them, Hachi Amar Shmuel. This is what Shmuel said. Avarab. This was the bracha they said before. The Shema over there was Avarabba. Amar Rav Zreika, Amar Rav Ami, Amar Shimon ben Lakish. Yotzar, the bracha was Yotzar. Ki Asar Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef Amar Had Rav Zreika. This the Rav Zreika had said that it was Yotzar. La beferish itmar. They didn't. It wasn't explicit saying in the name of the Rav Zreika that it was Yotzar. Ela michlala itmar. They arrived at this from an inference. To Amar Rav Zreika, Amar Rav Ami, Amar Shimon ben Lakish. We have a quote from Rav Zreika in the name of Rav Ami, in the name of Rav Shimon ben Lakish. Zoy Meres. It says. On this statement, he made a quotation and said was quoted as saying, "Brachas ein ma'akvas zu ezu." The brachas are not ma'akev one from the other. Meaning, this that we have Havarabba and Yotzar, okay, they're not ma'akev. You can say one without the other. So the Gemara says, if the blessing that they had said, the one bracha that the Kohanim would say in the Beis Hamikdash was Yotzar, Amri Hainu brachas de marachas emakvazu azu. That is why you could see they only said one. They didn't have so much time, so they said Yotzar, and they didn't say Avarabba. So you see that you could say one without the other. Deloika Amri Avarabba. They didn't say Avarabba. on the first word on the line on Yud Beis, Ela I Amrit Avarabba Havu Amri, if the bracha that they had said in the Beis Hamikdash was in fact Avarabba before Shema, then my brachas Ema Akvazu Azu. How can you make a quote? How could be quoted as saying that the brachas are not ma'akiv one for the other? They're not imperative to have both blessings. Dilma hai delay amri yotzar. This the reason why they didn't say yotzar in the morning is mishum delay matas man yotzar, because it wasn't the time yet. But v'chimati yisman yitzar, when the time would come and they can say that the day has come, right after sunrise, have amri, they would say it then. So the Gemara says, you see from here that this quote that we had from Rav Zreika that said in the name of Rav Ami, the name of Shimon Lakish, that the bracha that they said in the Beis Hamikdash was Yotzar, it must be. But not that we had him say a quote from him saying it, but we derived it from another statement that he made, because he had said that the brachas are not imperative. We can have one without the other. They're not ma'akev one from the other. Okay, so if the bracha that they had said was Avarabba, that can't be, because that wouldn't show it. Because perhaps the reason they said Avarabba, and the reason they didn't say Yitzhar is because it didn't come to time yet. The sun it wasn't sunrise yet. But when the sun rose, they would say it. Okay, so the Gemara says v'imichlala. We had said before that it was we derived it. My d'imichlala. It seems to be pretty clear that this is a good proof that this is Rav Zreika's opinion. How do you derive this from here? Why is it a derivation? The Gemara says, "Lo'ilam avarabba havu." Really, it was an avarabba. V'chimat amri v'chimat asman yitzar havu amri amri. So my brachas emak v'zu azu. When we said before that the brachas are one from the other, he meant Seder brachas. He meant the order that they would say Avarabba before Yotzar, because it didn't come the time for Yotzar. But not that you could have one that if you have one, you don't need the other. We don't really see that they're not ma'akiv. Maybe you really do need one with the other. So the fact that he said that Ema Akvazu Azu, so brachas Ema Akvazu Azu, doesn't necessarily mean that the bracha that was done in the Beis Hamikdash was Yotzar. It could have been Avarabba. And really what he meant with it, that they're not ma'akiv, means that he meant that they're not ma'akiv the Seder, that the order is not ma'akiv, but they are ma'akiv to have both of them. Okay? So we'll take it from here tomorrow.